touchdown more.
Brown stuff right now doesn't matter because we have president of Youngstown State University,
Yes.
Jim Tressel.
Yes, we do. The great Jim
debut.
Tressel. Jim, welcome to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's a thrill to have you on. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. How's your day going?
It's wonderful. Thank you. It's sunny and 75 here in Youngstown.
Yeah, as they say, we shouldn't
lucky.
get used to it because, as we know, it's going to be 40 in a day or two.
I was sleeping with the air conditioning last night.
Yeah.
That's how
It's that kind of
beautiful it
weather.
was last night.
So, Coach, we'll get to the Ohio State stuff in a little bit, but first, this is your last go-round as the president of Youngstown State University. Have you given much thought yet to how you'll spend your time after this year is done? What will take up the bulk of your days?
Well, I've given a lot of thought to it, and it's like anything else, it's hard to sort out all of the various opportunities that, we may have. This is my 48th year in higher education, and both jobs have been 7 days a week. And so I'm probably not going to go 7 days a week. I can tell you that.
Good for you.
But, my wife always reminds me that I'm a workaholic, so it's not that I'm going to go 0 days a week. So, I really do want to have a chance to spend more time with family and friends and former players, former coaches. I was just up in South Bend the other day. I stopped by to see Marcus and James Laurinaitis and just being there for various guys. We have Luke over at Cincinnati and PJ up in Minnesota and Mel at Michigan State. And, my nephew's the defensive coordinator for Luke at Cincinnati. And so I don't get a chance to be around those guys as much as I would like. And Pat Narduzzi's right over here at Pitt, and I never get to see him. And so, having a chance to see those former coaches, former players, but also continue to be helpful for Youngstown State University, Northeast Ohio, with all of our economic development things we're working on. So I'm not going to be short on activities. I'm just going to have to sort it out.
Coach, my longtime radio partner, Dustin Fox, of course, was one of your first recruits at Ohio State. I texted him earlier to say you were coming on, and he is always, I didn't get to see the smile today because it was a text, but he always smiles when your name comes up. I'm curious, when you think of all the guys you coached, going back to Dustin, at Ohio State, but even before that, what do you miss, if anything, about being in the locker room?
Oh, well, that's what you miss the most is that intimacy of the staff room, working, night and day, throwing coffee cups at each other when you're disagreeing about the game, being in the locker room and being there for your kids. Kids are kids. They go through more things than just on the field. I know we only see them on the field, but, their lives are as complex as anyone else's. And so having those intimate conversations, helping them dream about their dreams and try to become the men that you want them to become. So obviously you miss all of that. And I think I'll have a little bit more time to do a little more individual coaching than I have a chance to now. And in fact, I just spent this morning from 7 a.m. to 9:15 a.m. with Ryan Shazier and Simon Arias, two of my guys. And,
wow.
And just talking about their businesses, talking about their lives. So I enjoy that more than anything. The games were fun and the rings are shiny and all that kind of thing, but really the relationships are what really it's all about. And hopefully I'll have a little bit more time to continue those relationships and just be helpful, see if I can add value to the lives of the people who certainly added a lot of value to my life.
Coach, when you got out of coaching, there's always that thing where football is inside you. You can't just avoid it. You watch it on TV, and obviously it's probably something that you still do a lot now. But can you give us a time when it was the closest you've ever thought about coming back to coach? You obviously never really did it, but was there any opportunities or any times when you thought for, maybe even a split second, hey, I might want to go back and get on the sidelines?
I suppose we all have those fleeting moments. My beloved Cleveland Browns, there was a time when I thought, wow, gee, I wonder if, that might be a fun thing or whatever. But, I'm not a very good spectator, and, watching games and listening to all the infinite wisdom of the people broadcasting the game sometimes, is a little bit much for me. So, I would either be all in or really on the outside. And people ask me all the time, well, how are the Buckeyes and what about the Browns? And, how's your YSU team? And I've got 100 people in my president's suite at every home game. I don't have time to see 10 plays, nor do I ever like to comment on things, because if you're not at practice, I think that's where people misunderstand coaching more than anything. People say, well, why are we doing this? Well, probably because we learned something at practice, and even though Allen Iverson doesn't think practice is that important, practice is really important. So knowing that I'm not at practice, everyone says, well, where does Marcus Freeman and the Irish need to get better? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've watched a couple of their ball games, not start to finish, but bits and pieces, but I've never been to a practice, and so I don't know. And so if you're going to be in coaching, you have to be all in, and I really haven't had that desire to be all in, other than way back. I think I could have been tempted by the Browns, but NFL was not something that I had a resume in, and so it probably didn't make sense anyway. But you have to decide that you're going to work 120, 130 hours a week. After having been at Ohio State, I just didn't feel as if there was another experience that would have been as fulfilling as that one.
Coach, if you could go back, you were a quarterbacks coach at Miami University in 1979, 1980. If you could go back and tell young coach you one piece of advice after all this time, I know you've learned a lot, but if you could sit yourself down and say one thing to you in that year, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Oh boy, 1979 and 80. The hardest part about being at Miami was I had to leave, and I guess patience. I remember talking with my dad, who at the time was very ill, and saying, "Hey, Dad, I don't know. Syracuse wants me to come, and Coach McPherson is leaving the Browns and is taking the Syracuse job, but I really love it here at Miami and really gotten to know the players, and I think we can be good, and all those kinds of things." And I remember him saying, "Well, don't forget that the players are going to graduate too. You have to make good decisions for yourself," which I thought was good advice. But I think patience in coaching. Make sure that you're with the people that really can make a difference for you. I know Tom Reed, who we just lost. He just passed, our former Miami head coach. He was extraordinary, and Coach Dennison was my first boss as a head coach at Akron, and Coach McPherson. I'm so lucky that I got with people like them. Coach McPherson taught me more about building a program, because I went with him his first year at Syracuse, and just to see how methodically he built a program. Little did I know I would get a chance to do that twice at YSU and then at Ohio State, and really build a program here as a president of a university. I learned more from Dick McPherson about building programs than anyone I was ever around. So I would give that young coach the advice of, make sure you get with the right people.
Wow.
Coach, we've had a lot of your former players on. We had Anthony Gonzalez on. Obviously, he's served in Congress or Capitol Hill. I've always thought this, and a lot of people said at one point in time in the state of Ohio, you probably could have ran for governor of the state, senator of the state. Have you ever seriously considered going into a political career?
That I can answer definitively, no. Your question on the coaching, I had to be honest that I'd had flickers of thought getting back in coaching, but in political office, no. Never a thought.
Isn't coaching a little bit political at times, particularly at a place like Ohio State?
I don't know that it would be political. Yes, you have to fundraise, which, politicians do a lot of fundraising. But, that's the beauty. I think that's why people like sports, is that, the debate isn't as vague. I mean, you either win or you lose. There's a scoreboard that's pretty simple, and if you're running the country or running the state, the scoreboard is so complex, and it's so hard to decide whether you did a good job or didn't do a good job because there's so much involved, and really in really respect for the political public servants, the breadth of what they have to keep in mind. And Anthony Gonzalez has told me this more than once, that there's really a lot of great things that go on in Washington, D.C. They don't always get covered that much. It's some of the spectacular stuff that is somewhat divisive that gets covered a lot. But a lot of the good, hard work on behalf of the people, he said, there's really a lot of good stuff going on. It's just such a complex organization that, you don't always see that. And I have to give respect to the people that are willing to, to serve the public.
Coach, speaking of your former players, Maurice Clarett is a frequent guest on our show. Unfortunately, we wanted to pop him in with you for a couple minutes, but he has something going on personally, as I'm sure you know. But
he does say hi, by the way, Coach.
Right,
he wanted to make sure I sent that message. He cannot be here, but he says what's up and hope all is well.
But the turnaround...
I'm proud of Maurice. He's done a great job.
Yeah, Coach, the turnaround in his life after being at the low of the low to where he is now, putting his life back in order, I just wanted your thoughts on where he is and what you think about it.
That's the reality in all of our lives, is there's going to be moments where it's going just as you'd hoped, and there's going to be moments where you can't believe where it went.
Yeah.
And the same thing in the course of a football game. There's going to be moments where it's going the way you hoped, and going to be moments where it's going the other direction. The key to people that are winners in football is they can handle the ups and downs. They don't get too high with the ups or too low with the downs. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. They have a belief. And I always say winners win. That's just what winners do. Well, it's the same thing in life. Maurice, just an extraordinary talent, made a huge impact on Ohio State football. One could argue that him coming to Ohio State at the beginning of this century might have been the single most important thing that turned the fortunes of Ohio State football where it is today. That if you look at the seasons from this century, the Buckeyes have always been in the conversation. And his coming to Ohio State and the difference he made might have arguably been as important as anything. And then, of course, he hit the hard times. He made some decisions. He'd be the first to tell you that he didn't surround himself maybe always with the right people. And but to his credit, he handled his consequences. He made a very difficult thing into something that would help him grow, and that when he got his new opportunities, he has run with them, and he's making a difference in a lot of communities. He's having an exceptional business career. His family, his daughter's a senior in high school, and he's got two little ones now. Life is good, and he's a hardworking guy.
He really is. He's driven. He's motivated. He's intelligent. And the one thing that stands out about Maurice is I remember the first time we had him on the show, and I'd had these conversations with him off air, but never in such a public manner. He came in our studio and sat in our studio for 2 hours, and Coach, he put his arms around everything. I mean, you talk about the low points, and a lot of people, I think, had they gone through those things, would be embarrassed to relive them. Not that he's proud of them, but he doesn't run from anything, and that's always what stood out to me about Maurice. If you spend any time talking about him, he talks more about those times than his times at Ohio State when he was helping, as you say, rebuild and put on the map again a once national power who had fallen off. What is it about his makeup, do you think, and perhaps other people, where they're not afraid of their past and their low moments, and they embrace them?
I think real winners, whether it's in life or in the game of football, do learn the most through their tough times. I think our 2002 team became national champions because they had some low times in 99, 2000, 2001, and they didn't back down from them. They learned the lessons from them, and they weren't going to be denied. Well, the same can be true for an individual. Maurice doesn't sugarcoat it. He had some tough times. He had some moments that he had to make some decisions as to was he going to learn from what he knows, that wasn't the direction to go. And, you mentioned there at the outset of discussing Maurice's, his intelligence. He's always been intelligent. His drive, he's always had drive, but he had to decide where he was going to apply his intelligence and drive. And so he decided, you know what, I want to do it in the proper fashion. And, again, I couldn't be more proud of him, but most of my teams learned their best lessons from their toughest losses. It's just the way it was. Most of my best players learned their greatest lessons from the times when they didn't do it well. And they learned the lesson as to what do I have to do this better and become the best I can be. And so I think the human being in general needs to struggle. I think it's a need.
Yeah.
The human being has to decide they're going to handle the struggle. Some people don't handle the struggle. The winner handles the tough times, and Maurice Clarett is a winner.
Yeah, it's
Coach,
poetic.
obviously the Glenville football program is an important part of the Cleveland community. Ted Ginn Sr. has done such a great job there. Ted Ginn Jr. obviously played at Ohio State, and a lot of Glenville players have played at Ohio State. Can you talk about what that relationship was like between Glenville and just Cleveland in general as well, and the Buckeyes?
Well, I've known Ted Sr. for, 40 years maybe 38 years, whatever. And, I've always admired the fact that all he wants to do is make a difference in kids' lives. And he wants to make a difference in kids' lives who maybe haven't had as much support as some of us have had. And he spends night and day. All he cares about is helping his kids have a chance to make it, to realize their goals and so forth. And what he's done with that program since taking over at Glenville, and then now his Ginn Academy, and the numbers of kids that he has sent on to have opportunities, and he's miraculous in my mind. There's not many people who have had the kind of impact in not the easiest situation. It's been amazing, the pride that it's brought to our Northeast Ohio area, the pride that it brought to the Buckeyes, to have so many of those kids. There was a time when we did a total compilation of how many yards, touchdowns, interceptions, wins. We did this whole Glenville thing, and I wish I could put my hand on it, because it was thousands of yards and points and victories, and that the Tarblooders were a part of at Ohio State that, I would probably guess no other single high school has had their hand in as much production at Ohio State as Glenville.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I was born in Warren. I went to Warren JFK. I'm familiar with the area. One thing I miss most is the food in that area. Can you give a shout out to a couple of the amazing Youngstown, greater Youngstown area restaurants? Where do you give me a couple of good restaurants that you enjoy there in Youngstown?
Well, if you're up in Warren, of course, Leo's and Vernon's and, those types. I like the Chop House over there at the Avalon Resort. Trying to think here up in that area. Alberini's used to be.
Heck yeah.
Richard Alberini's and Jimmy Sheffo's and Cafe 422, and all those used to be the ones where not all of them are still rolling now. And then down here in Youngstown, you have Aquapazzo and you have Prima Cucina, and of course, right, our campus restaurant right behind the campus, the MVR, which is the Mahoning Valley restaurant, and the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is the Ursuline Irish restaurant right near their school, and the MVR is the Cardinal Mooney hangout, and right on the YSU campus. But yeah, one thing we're not short on here is food.
Yep.
It's
I missed it all. I just wanted to hear that list again. Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate it.
Mike's hungry now.
Columbus for 13 years, 3 years as an assistant and 10 as a head coach, and there's hundreds and hundreds of restaurants there. But I'm not sure that from traditional, especially Italian food, that per capita restaurants, the Youngstown Warren area is pretty tough.
What
to
happened
beat.
was we always used to be mobbed out there, but then sort of the mob got busted to a degree, and then everybody just had to learn how to cook. So we're like, now, well, we can still cook, and now that there's a cuisine, an Italian cuisine-based economy, and I love it. Anyways, I miss it. My best to Alberini's.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been here since 1986. I took a 14-year hiatus away from here, but everyone brings up the mob and all that kind of thing, and in my 36 years around here, I wouldn't, if I bumped into someone that was a part of the mob, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's folklore or what it is, but I keep hearing that, but have never seen it.
Glorified yesteryear.
Hey, Coach, before we let you go, I think we have to get your thoughts on NIL.
Yeah.
And I know that's a broad topic, and I know that you probably have some pretty strong thoughts on that. Is the game better today because of that? Where is the future of the NIL? What are your general thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think it's so early in the discussion. I think that, we kind of did it to ourselves in that as revenue began skyrocketing in intercollegiate athletics, for whatever reason, we chose not to have the student athletes take part in the spoils, and then all of a sudden, when it got so out of hand and started getting so much attention that it kind of exploded. And I think the NCAA is in the midst of this whole transformation discussion and all of those types of things. I think there'll be a lot take shape here in the next year or two. I don't know what it'll be. You have to be a little bit careful. Some people are saying, well, maybe we need federal intervention. And, I'm not sure how well federal's worked out for us right now. But, so I don't know. I will say this. I wish 50 years ago, 40 years ago, as the revenue started growing, that we would have put some really smart people in the room and figured out a way to anticipate how the student athlete could have been more a part of that. Whether it would have been annuities or things put back or just different things so that we didn't get to this moment, but we're at this moment, and it's a little bit of the wild, wild west. I'm not sure all the different impact it's going to have because the major schools are going to be raising lots of money, which, will that impact their ability of their university to raise money for the general university? I don't know. Will it impact your ability to raise funds for the athletic department that you normally used to have to raise, but they'll say, well, no, I'm investing in the NIL. So I think it's a little bit too early. I think a lot of people are working hard to try to figure it out. Nothing would surprise me in terms of the future, all the way from the NCAA figuring it out to the NCAA disappearing. I don't know. I mean, you could go a lot of different directions, but I think people, to their credit, are working extremely hard, vetting it, talking about it, trying to figure out how we can do things fairly, properly, have the right kind of restrictions but I'd say stay tuned. The NIL discussion is not over.
Yeah, that's for sure. Before we let you go, our producer Mikey McNuggets has a question for you. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Coach, thanks for joining the show. I was unfamiliar with the Youngstown State mascot till I saw your quarter zip. That penguin's awesome. My question, though, is You meet a lot of people in what you do, and you've met a lot of people throughout your years. I'm going to pull up a picture in a sec. I'm curious. Did you know who you were taking a picture with here, or is this just some random guy who asked you for a picture? Let's take the tag board here. Do you know this man?
Oh yeah, that's Tyvis from Bedford.
You just made Tyvis' life, Coach.
What's that?
You just made his life. Tyvis is part of the show, and he sent us this picture. And
Yeah,
he,
you know
big
what?
fan
I
of yours.
had seen Tyvis when that night I saw him. That was at the 100-year birthday of Ohio Stadium, and I hadn't seen Tyvis since I think maybe spring of 2011. So that was 11 years or so. And when he came up, I thought, man, that handsome young man. I feel like I know him. And then when he reached his hand out, I thought, man, he was one of the last guys I recruited at Ohio State, and I'm so proud of him. And he's looking good and doing good.
Wow, from Dustin Fox to Tyvis Powell.
Yeah.
And everybody in between.
We're never going to hear the end of that, Coach.
Let me give you a Dustin Fox story, because anytime people bring up Dustin Fox, the first thing that flashes in my mind, as you say, he was, I think, the first guy I called after I became the head coach at Ohio State, or at least one of the first. And I remember my daughter's high school team was Boardman High School, and they were playing against Canton Glen Oak in the basketball season at the time. It was in January. And it was a league game, and we had Terrence Dials at Boardman, who ended up playing at Ohio State. And Dustin, of course, was playing for Glen Oak. And so I told my daughter, I said, hey, tell me how that Fox kid looks, because, he's going to have to face up against Terrence Dials and so forth. And I'd say about 7:15, after the game started, my phone rang, and it was my daughter. And she said, you're not going to believe this, but Dustin Fox just dunked on Terrence Dials. Ooh, we got to get this guy if he can dunk. Because Dustin could jump about 42 inches.
Yeah.
He was extraordinary.
He was an incredible athlete, and had you not gone to Ohio State, Dustin probably would have ended up at Penn State.
Well, that's where Derek ended up.
Yep.
And had a good career, and I don't know. I think Dustin would have had a hard time not going to Ohio State.
It was
but,
close. It was close.
I'll take credit for that. As a president, I don't get credit for much lately, so that's a good thing.
Well,
Thanks, Coach.
you know what? Anybody that followed Ohio State football while you were there, they know what time it was, and they know that you were instrumental in turning that thing around and putting it in a place where it could succeed.
Look where Miami is
for
now.
so many years. Yeah, absolutely. Look where Miami's gone. It can go. It can go one way or another. And Coach, as a lifelong Buckeye fan, it's always great to talk to you. So appreciative of what you did for the Ohio State University, and enjoy retirement. It's okay to take your foot off the gas. Relax and smell the roses.
Thanks,
All
Coach.
righty. Thanks so much, guys. Have
Thank
fun.
you, Coach.
The great Jim
Bye now.
Tressel on the Ultimate Cleveland.